On January 8, 1993, 7 innocent lives were cut short over a mere $1,800. It was a quiet evening in Palatine, Illinois, and Brown's Chicken and Pasta was just wrapping up for the night. Owners Richard and Lynn Ehlenfeldt, along with 5 employees, Guadalupe Maldonado, Michael Castro, Rico Solis, Thomas Menace, and Marcus Nellsen, were finishing up their day's work, preparing to lock up. 2 men entered the restaurant, initially planning to rob the place. Instead, the situation turned violent. The assailants rounded up the 7 employees, forcing them into the restaurant's walk-in coolers, where they executed them in cold blood. Lynn Ehlenfeldt's throat was slashed before she was shot. After killing the victims, the 2 men took what little cash they could find, between $1,800 and $1,900, and fled the scene. 16-year-old Michael Castro's parents called the police a couple of hours after closing time when he didn't come home. Later, Guadalupe Maldonado's wife also called the police, concerned that her husband had not returned home from work and that his car was still in the apparently closed Brown's Chicken parking lot. When officers arrived at the building, they noticed the rear employee door was open. Inside, they found the 7 bodies, some face down, some face up in a cooler, and in a walk-in refrigerator. By the time Palatine police discovered the bodies, more than 5.5 hours had passed since the store's closing. Despite the grim discovery and the urgency to solve the case, investigators initially had little evidence to work with, and the case quickly turned cold. For nearly a decade, the massacre haunted the community. In 2002, nearly 9 years later, a woman came forward and implicated her ex-boyfriend, James Degorski, and his friend Juan Luna in the murders. Ann Lockett told police that Degorski had confessed to her about his involvement in the crime. Degorski and Luna had been friends since childhood. Luna, who was 18 at the time of the murders, had previously worked at the restaurant. A few months later, investigators matched a DNA sample from Luna to saliva found on a partially eaten piece of chicken left at the crime scene. The Palatine Police Department took both suspects into custody on May 16, 2002. During interrogation, Luna confessed, though his lawyers later argued that his confession was coerced through police brutality and threats of deportation against his family. Degorski also confessed, and an audio recording of his statement was played during his trial. However, his lawyers argued that the confession was also obtained under coercion. During Luna's trial, his defense attorney claimed that the chicken linking Luna to the crime scene had been compromised. The chicken had been kept in a freezer most of the time since the crime, but was reportedly not frozen for days after its discovery, and had been allowed to thaw multiple times over the years for examination and testing. Despite this, Luna was found guilty of all 7 counts of murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole, as the jury fell 1 vote short of the unanimity required for the death penalty. James Degorski was found guilty in 2009, based largely on testimonies from his ex-girlfriend Ann Lockett. He received a life sentence without parole, also narrowly avoiding the death penalty. In 2014, Degorski was awarded $451,000 in damages after being assaulted by a Cook County jail deputy, resulting in facial injuries. He appealed his conviction in 2016 and 2022, arguing that Luna acted alone and challenging Lockett's credibility due to her psychiatric and drug history. Both appeals were denied. Luna and Degorski are both imprisoned at the Stateville Correctional Center in Crest Hill, Illinois.